The entire global aviation industry is shaken. Two major names, Air India and American Airlines, have simultaneously issued an important statement regarding the Boeing 787. The aircraft once praised as the pinnacle of 21st century technology, the pride of Boeing is now suddenly under serious suspicion. What made the two biggest airlines in the world speak out at the same time? Could this be a sign that Air India and American Airlines are quietly stepping back from their relationship with Boeing after a series of malfunctions and alarming warning signs? All secrets will be revealed in today's video. Air India takes an unprecedented step after a shocking tragedy. Boeing faces a fierce wave of rejection. On the night of June 19, 2025, Air India flight AI-171 plunged into a residential area near Ahmedabad in a horrifying freefall, taking the lives of more than 270 people and leaving behind a blood-soaked memory that cannot be erased. Just hours later, Air India issued an emergency announcement with an unprecedented tone, immediately cut 15% of all long-haul flights, reduced the entire international network from June 21st until at least July 15, 2025. The two aircraft types publicly singled out were the Boeing 787 Dreamliner and the Boeing 777, once praised as symbols of American technology. On the fateful day of June 19th, more than 20 flights were suddenly canceled within hours, causing a wave of chaos to spread from Delhi to Dubai and even London Heathrow. Airport floors were filled with collapsed passengers, people crying flight schedules wiped out, and the entire system seemed to collapse overnight. Even India's domestic flight network could not escape the impact. Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Pune, and many other cities fell into an extreme state of chaos never before recorded in the country's aviation history. That seemingly sudden decision was actually the result of a series of serious incidents that had been concealed for weeks. And what shocked the public the most was this: the entire root of the tragedy originated from Boeing, the corporation once considered a pillar of the American aviation industry. Immediately after the horrifying crash in June, Air India activated an emergency inspection campaign across the entire wide-body fleet, including both Boeing 787 Dreamliner and 777. Sources from the internal technical team revealed in just the 3 weeks leading up to the crash, the central navigation system of the Dreamliner had failed 5 times. There is even evidence suggesting that Air India requested a full inspection of all Boeing aircraft starting in early June. However, instead of cooperating with the investigation, Boeing was accused of exerting pressure to block internal procedures. Some Boeing engineers stated they had been quietly warned not to share any technical documents with outside parties. All warnings were sent out in May, but no one wanted to listen. It seems that human lives are still cheaper than the compensation for Boeing contracts. A technical staff member said bitterly under anonymity, "If all of this is true, then this is no longer just an accident, but a deliberately concealed crime." Although 26 out of a total of 33 Dreamliners have been inspected and cleared to return to service, the cancellation of 66 flights in just a few days has demonstrated how severe the paralysis really is. While Boeing remains trapped in a maze of unresolved technical failures, Air India continues to be cornered by escalating Middle East geopolitical tensions. The sudden closure of multiple airspaces has made international routes longer, more fuel-consuming, and far more dangerous. Previously safe air corridors have disappeared, forcing flights to Europe, the US, and Africa to divert through Central Asian airspace, where security risks have never been fully guaranteed. Air India described the current situation as a dual operational crisis. On one side is the collapse of trust in Boeing, on the other is the devastating blow from geopolitical instability. It is a quiet battle unfolding both in the skies and on the ground. And just days after Air India's shocking move, another major airline unexpectedly issued a statement that stunned the entire aviation industry. American Airlines suddenly withdraws all Boeing 787 aircraft from the Middle East, and the Doha route is officially suspended indefinitely. On June 19, 2025, as tensions in the Middle East escalated by the hour, American Airlines unexpectedly announced the suspension of its only route to Doha, Qatar, a route that had been operated daily using the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. There was no detailed explanation, only a brief cold statement for safety reasons. But according to multiple internal technical sources, the true cause is not geopolitical. The real concern centers on the Boeing 787-9 itself. The Doha route, once promoted by Boeing as a showcase of top-tier American technology, is now silently listed as unsafe by American Airlines pilots after a series of puzzling incidents in recent weeks. In just a few weeks, flight crews have continuously reported alarming malfunctions, faulty fuel sensors, erratic warning systems, and radar signal loss when flying through areas of geomagnetic interference. Some flights even had to divert or make emergency landings after receiving unexplained warnings. American Airlines' decision delivers a serious blow to Boeing's already fragile reputation, especially as the company has yet to recover from the earlier crisis surrounding the 737 MAX. The Boeing 787 was once hailed as the next-generation icon of 21st century aviation, lighter, more fuel-efficient, and smarter in design. But for 2 consecutive years, 2024-2025, more and more major airlines have continuously reported recurring technical faults that remain unexplained. The situation has become increasingly severe as technical failures occurred precisely when the Middle East entered a phase of extreme tension. Many experts bluntly warned it is Boeing that poses a greater ticking time bomb than artillery. In just the past week, Middle Eastern airspace was nearly paralyzed as the missile conflict between Israel and Iran erupted at an unprecedented scale. Hundreds of international flights were canceled in just a few days. Although Qatar and the UAE are not directly involved in the conflict, their airports, which are among the region's major transit hubs, have still been severely affected. Amid that backdrop, American Airlines' announcement to withdraw all Boeing 787 aircraft from the Doha route is no longer a mere technical adjustment, but a silent declaration. Boeing is not safe enough to operate in high-risk zones. According to data from aviation analytics firm Siri US, carriers alone have conducted up to 358 flights per week to the Middle East this month. So, when a major airline like American Airlines decides to withdraw all Dreamliners from Doha airspace, it sends a clear signal the level of risk has exceeded what any standard technical protocol can control. It's not just American Airlines. A wave of operational restructuring is spreading across the aviation industry. Emirates has suspended all flights to Jordan and Lebanon until June 22nd and stopped flying to Iran and Iraq until June 30th. Etihad, Qatar Airways, Air France, all are caught between 2 choices: absolute safety or maintaining their global network. The Boeing 787, once praised as the pride of long-range aviation technology, is now gradually being withdrawn from routes once considered strategic backbones. While the world waits for any sign of de-escalation from the warring sides, Middle Eastern skies are silently turning into a no-fly zone, undeclared but full of danger. It is this silent threat that is pushing the entire global aviation industry into an unprecedented deadlock not seen in the past decade. A new challenge arises as the skies become the next battlefield. 2 seemingly unrelated events, the devastating crash of Air India Flight AI-171 in India and the rapidly escalating geopolitical crisis in the Middle East, have now converged, creating a double shockwave that is shaking the entire global aviation industry. On one side is an internal crisis. Air India is forced to launch a comprehensive inspection of its wide-body fleet, the backbone of its long-haul international routes. On the other side is an external threat. The missile conflict between Iran and Israel is escalating to alarming levels, forcing many international airlines to suspend, reroute, or scale back operations in the Middle East, one of the world's most critical transit regions. American Airlines is among the first to officially withdraw from the region. What observers find impossible to ignore, the epicenter of both crises points to a single name: the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. This is the flagship aircraft model used by both Air India and American Airlines for the very routes now being cut or suspended. That dangerous overlap delivers a direct blow to Boeing's credibility, reigniting long-standing concerns about both the 787 and the 777 series. Could the technical risks hidden inside these wide-body aircraft be far more serious than Boeing has ever admitted? Christine Negroni, an aviation accident investigator and author of the book The Crash Detectives, also issued a firm warning. We are facing a dual-risk scenario: unreliable technology and, increasingly, dangerous airspace. When these two factors coincide, the aviation industry becomes more vulnerable than ever before. She specifically noted that the temporary suspension of Boeing 787 operations on strategic routes by Air India and American Airlines could mark the beginning of a shift where airlines are forced to reassess their entire approach to deploying wide-body aircraft. Many experts also express concern that if these problems are not addressed promptly, transparently, and in a coordinated manner, the industry could trigger a global domino effect. Confidence erodes passengers. Panic and airlines are pushed into a state of total reactivity. Rajan Mehra, former CEO of Air Sahara and now the CEO of Club One Air, stated bluntly, "The crash of AI-171 is an alarm bell that cannot be ignored." The ongoing scrutiny of the Boeing 787 and 777 clearly indicates something is seriously wrong in how these aircraft are being operated. If not addressed thoroughly, passenger trust will collapse even faster than revenue. He also emphasized that in the midst of a crisis, the shortage of replacement aircraft and trained technicians only increases the risk of operational paralysis across airline networks. Without urgent and decisive intervention from international aviation authorities and national governments, this dual shock could soon exceed regional boundaries and spread globally like an uncontrollable oil slick. Global air travel faces the risk of being dragged into a chain of disruptions, stretching from Asia to Europe and eventually erupting in North America. Dr. Mark Dombroff, former aviation attorney at the FAA and now a senior member at the law firm Fox Rothschild LLP, offered a legal and regulatory perspective. The problem doesn't just lie with the aircraft itself, but with the legal framework and the ability of regulators to coordinate. Without a unified response from governments and aviation authorities, airlines will continue to act individually and remain in a reactive position. He emphasized that an emergency summit between IATA-ICAO and Boeing must be held immediately to establish a joint response plan and prevent widespread panic across the industry. And now a heavy question looms, not only for Boeing, but for the entire global aviation sector. Is the sky still safe enough for humans to place their trust in? The dual shock is exposing systemic vulnerabilities across the entire global aviation industry. This is no longer about isolated flight cancellations or a few disrupted routes. The current crisis, a combination of geopolitical turmoil and recurring aircraft malfunctions, is revealing a chilling truth. The world's aviation system is operating on an absurdly thin line. Major carriers like American Airlines, Lufthansa, and Air India are now facing a life-or-death dilemma as their wide-body fleets, particularly the Boeing 787 and 777, are being pushed to their operational limits. Just a single false alert, a sudden airspace closure, or an unexpected technical inspection can cause global schedules to collapse like a domino chain in a matter of hours. A stark reality is being exposed regardless of size. Many airlines remain wholly dependent on wide-body aircraft for long-haul operations. The Boeing 787 and 777 are typically run at near maximum capacity, with almost no margin for technical errors or sudden grounding. As a result, even a minor disruption in one link can trigger cascading system-wide interruptions. The excessive reliance on the 787 and 737 has placed many major airlines, from Air India to American Airlines, in a position of near-total vulnerability. Operating a global system that depends on minute-level precision, yet lacks a shock-absorbing buffer for crisis response, is like balancing your entire network on the edge of a razor blade, warned Dr. Michael Lenz, an aviation logistics expert at Cranfield University, UK. The situation worsens as both Boeing and Airbus face delivery delays, preventing airlines from promptly deploying new aircraft to make up for shortages. While short-haul aircraft can still be temporarily reassigned to adapt wide-body jets, bound by fixed schedules and long runway airport requirements have virtually no room for substitution. Every link in the operational chain, from cockpit crews, technical teams, ground logistics, to the passengers themselves, is being pushed to the breaking point. Chain reaction flight schedules, collapse market in turmoil. The dual shock from the AI-171 disaster and the geopolitical crisis in the Middle East has rapidly triggered a global domino effect. From operating costs and crew pressure to passenger experience, every element is being pulled into a vortex of instability. The first bottleneck is the financial burden. With airlines forced to avoid airspace over Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Israel, and surrounding regions, they've had to establish rerouted paths, adding 1 to 3 hours of flight time per trip. This results in tens of extra tons of fuel burned per flight, a costly consequence at a time when jet fuel prices are skyrocketing by the hour. According to Rishi Agrawal, an analyst at Skyfleet India, for long-haul routes, even an extra 90 minutes per flight can increase fuel costs by tens of thousands of dollars. Multiply that across the weekly schedule and entire fleet, and the figure becomes enormous, one no airline wants to face. At the same time, pilot and crew teams are reaching dangerous levels of overload. Extended working hours have pushed many beyond the legally allowed safety limits, forcing airlines to delay or reshuffle flight crews at the last minute. This has thrown major transit hubs like Dubai, Frankfurt, Delhi, and Heathrow into deep scheduling chaos. In such critical junctions, even the slightest disruption can trigger a chain reaction that affects dozens of routes within hours. Frequent delays, cancellations, and last-minute flight changes are pushing passengers to the edge of their patience. Social media and review platforms are flooded with complaints, reports, and rising frustration. Many travelers accuse the airlines of being non-transparent, understaffed, and slow to respond to the crisis. According to data from TripRadar, within just 5 days after the AI-171 tragedy, the rate of flight refund requests and complaints surged by over 280%. At the same time, growing fears about flying over Middle Eastern airspace, combined with rising doubts about the safety of Boeing 787 and 777 aircraft, have caused a significant spike in ticket cancellations. Alongside the wave of consumer outrage, legal and media pressure is mounting on Boeing, the manufacturer of the two aircraft models suspected to be the technical epicenter of the industry-wide crisis. Several investigative bodies, including the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) and the National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB), have launched formal reviews into Boeing's maintenance procedures and inspection protocols. Major airlines, from Air India to American Airlines, have also found themselves squarely in the eye of a growing public backlash. Boeing will have to face the public regarding the true reliability of the 787 Dreamliner. A technical flaw at this point not only affects safety, but shakes the entire global aviation supply chain, emphasized Daniel Schultz, an aviation attorney based in Washington, D.C. All these developments are creating an unprecedented chain reaction flight schedules, collapsing crew members, exhausted passengers, overwhelmed with anxiety and trust in the entire global aviation system shaken to its core. The sky is no longer the same, and far more terrifying things may be coming. The global aviation industry is flying through unprecedented turbulence, where the line between an accident and a system-wide collapse is now as thin as a stretched thread. The AI-171 disaster is not merely a tragedy, it is the exposed fracture of a safety framework that had long been upheld more by belief than by reality. When the Boeing 787, once hailed as the pinnacle of aviation technology, becomes the center of doubt and warning, the question is no longer what happened, but rather how much is still hidden and who is trying to keep it in the dark. A quiet investigation has already begun. An internal report from a Boeing subcontractor in Charleston, where Dreamliners are assembled, is believed to contain information that could change how the world views the safety of long-haul aviation. We are entering an era where even a slight shake on a flight makes passengers hold their breath, not out of fear of altitude, but out of fear of what has yet to be revealed. Don't forget to hit like and click subscribe so you don't miss the most important updates that might just change how you see what's happening in the skies above.